you guys gave us a lot of really positive rat poison. The rat poison that you usually give us is usually fatal. But the rat poison that you put out there this week was yummy.
All right, we'll go over here on the right, in front row, in the middle.
I don't know how to follow that.
Oh, welcome in to a little emergency edition of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And I'm joined as always by my cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Balls on Twitter. What are you up to, you big Tennessee Homer?
Oh, they weren't ready.
Man,
what a game, man. What a game.
Yeah, so we're recording moments after Alabama wins the SEC championship 41-24. And man, Shane, I don't think even the biggest diehard Crimson Tide fans went into that game. You know, they were hoping and praying for a win, but I don't think any of them expected the whooping we got of them Georgia Bulldogs. And that's kind of the story of the game, isn't it?
Yeah, don't let that score fool you, man. It was an ass whipping, man. I'll tell you, frustrating because I thought that this was going to be a game that went the opposite direction. Of course, we'll talk about that. But I think, man, we had a hell of a matchup. Nick Saban came in with a hell of a game plan. Yep. I mean, say what you want. Crimson Tide's back was against the wall. You know, they had to win. I didn't even really think about that toward the tail end of our show. You know, Georgia having a mulligan. Right. I don't know if that was floating around the locker room, but, man, I think Georgia, I mean, they're going to have to do a lot of growing up if they're going to win the national championship, Mike.
Yeah, and that seed of doubt that was already in Kirby and the rest of that program's mind, now that just grows here because, like you said, they just got whipped. They allowed 24 points in the second quarter, Shane. That was more points than they allowed at any month of the season, any game of the season. I mean, Alabama figured something out, and you know, I don't want to say exposed Georgia because here we were talking them up all season, but how concerned are you heading into the playoff now that Georgia, you know, there may be some cracks in their armor here?
Very concerned, Mike. You know, because it felt like, especially at quarterback, man, the Stetson, the mailman, did not get this job done today, and I've never been more worried about a quarterback situation than I am right now because I understand what Stetson's been able to do this season has been phenomenal. But then when you look at who they've played, you know, you got to say, is that the reason? Is it because this was the defense that they were facing?
So what do you do here, Shane, if you're the Bulldogs? And, you know, let's assume they even make the playoff, which, you know, I think they will. But, I mean, that's not even a layup at this point. I mean, who knows what could happen tonight? Maybe they get kicked out. I certainly don't think that's going to happen. I hope it doesn't. But so let's assume that Georgia makes the playoff. What do you do here? Do you go with Stetson, who threw two interceptions? Who, you know, he put up some yards, but a lot of it was junk time, or do you make the switch to JT Daniels?
Oh, Mike, I think this is an easy answer, Mike. I think when you're looking at this game, I go back to 2011. Gary kind of hinted at it toward the end of the game, that LSU Alabama matchup when Alabama beat LSU, but then they meet again later in the BCS championship, and it goes the opposite way. Georgia's in the same boat, man. Georgia has, you talk about a hell of a halftime adjustment. That's what you've got here. You've got ample time to come in with a different strategy. And nothing better than coming out with a different quarterback. You're talking about a team that has already faced Stetson. They know. The problem was, man, Stetson felt like he kept zeroing in on Bowers and Cook. We got to have some other weapons. It was good to see Pickens out there, but obviously he's not game ready. Yeah. But by the time these guys meet again, we need some more weapons. We need somebody to step up, and I think that's what JT can do. JT can find some athletes on the outside, on the perimeter, and make this game a little bit more two-dimensional.
And just looking ahead briefly to the playoff here, well, I mean, Bryce Young just won himself the Heisman. I forgot to mention that.
Oh, God.
There's no doubt the way he played here on Saturday just diced this Georgia defense for the vast majority
Mm-hmm.
of the game. He's a lock to win the Heisman now, I would think. But you got to think if you missed it, Cincinnati, they just won their minor league, whatever they're in. So they're probably going to go to the playoff. So I think what you do is you reward Alabama and say, well, let's give them Cincinnati. So it's basically an automatic ticket punched to the national championship. And then you got Georgia facing whoever the other team is, Michigan or what have you. And now the path, not to say Georgia wouldn't be favored, whoever they play, but now it's the trip to the national championship gets a little bit more tougher for the Bulldogs. And and that's kind of the consequence of what we just saw losing this SEC championship game.
Well, Mike, the fact of the matter is everybody's talking about Georgia Bulldogs, had been talking about them all season, us included, even convinced both of us that there was no chance that Alabama would have an opportunity to win this game, and they did. So this whole season, you can't just say, all right, well, now they're not good. No, maybe they just had a bad game.
Yeah.
I think this is a learning curve here. I think this is going to set up. It's not like a BCS game. This is a college football playoff. We're going to see other ball games prior to, but the build up for a rematch, I think it's you can't keep these two teams out. So yeah, give me Bama, give me Cincinnati. I'd love to see them in there. I just can't wait to watch that game. Whoever they face, man, I just hope they put the B team in and just beat the shit out of Cincinnati. That'd be great. But hey, I'm up for it. Who's the fourth team? Is it whoever wins the Big Ten?
Yeah, so they're going to play here in a minute. So you got to think they're going to be a factor. Certainly, you can't put Utah. I think Utah, they won the Pac-12, but they lost a couple games. You're not going to put, since the ACC is Pitt versus Wake Forest, you're not going to put them in. So we're running out of
and
options.
Oklahoma State,
Right.
Oh, Gundy, get a little short there on the goal line, huh? Man, he was a mullet hair short for making the playoffs.
Well, let me ask you this real quick, because I think you hit on an important point, Shane. You can't let one game completely change the narrative. I know we're all overreacting.
Right.
We're all having fun on Twitter. Kirby can't coach. He's the biggest fraud in college football because he lost to maybe the best team or number 2 team in the country. Let's say Alabama, Georgia meet for the national championship. Of course, it's going to be on a neutral field. Who do you favor? What's the point spread?
I still think that it's I think you flip it. I think you put Bama -6 right now in this situation, because here's the deal, Mike. I think you got to do something different. I think, and you got to do it at quarterback. It's clearly, it's obvious, man. I mean, the mailman was a great story. It was almost a Hallmark movie, but it got exposed here at the end when we realized that we need something else. There's a reason you brought JT in. Let's cut him loose. Let's let him play. Let's air this thing out. You got to mix it up. You got to be different. Stetson always reminds me of those. You ever seen those little cars that got them donut tires? You know what I'm saying? Like they got a flat. You put that donut tire. Yeah, it'll get you to work if you're driving 45 miles an hour. But you jump on an Autobahn, you gonna get, you know what I'm saying? You're gonna find yourself back on the side of the road. That's what Stetson is to me, man. Stetson's a donut. I want JT out there. I want to mix this thing up. I want to air it out. I want to get some more receivers involved, man. We act like Bowers is the only receiving weapon. I mean, don't get me wrong. Fantastic effort. I mean, you want to talk about A for effort. There's nobody that played harder than that man tonight. But you need more, and they have more. They're just not giving them the opportunities.
Yeah, Stetson's done a hell of a job when the offense is going, when the ground game's working. He can get you, the points you need to win with that dominant defense. But once you get in that shootout with Bryce Young, he just he ain't got it. And who knows? If it's Michigan, whoever the hell it is, you may be getting a shootout with them. And there's no guarantee you're going to get to the championship game if you play like you did today. So,
right,
yeah, I mean, JT Daniels, Bryce Young. Hell, JT Daniels started over Bryce Young. I don't know if you know this, Shane, in high school. So, I mean, there's clear proof that he's a hell of a talent, and he's got the arm, and he can get it done. So,
right.
If I'm a Georgia fan, Shane, I'm sweating a little bit here that Kirby Smart's got to be the one that makes that decision. Because last time I checked, he's known for these quarterback errors.
Absolutely, and I think when they do these. The picks in the playoffs here, I don't think we see Alabama, Georgia, week one. I think, Georgia's going to get a tune-up game. So if you're worried about a little rust off Stetson, I wouldn't. I'm sorry, JT, because I think they're going to have a tune-up game. It doesn't matter if it's Cincinnati, it doesn't matter if it's Michigan or Notre Dame slips in or something like that. It doesn't matter. This defense is good. They got a little bit exposed there in the secondary. They're going to have to work on that, in the coming weeks. But that front seven, you cannot run on these guys. Alabama still had a hard time running the ball. I think they're good. They're good up there. They just got to clean up a little bit in the back. But you have opportunity to do something different on offense, because you cannot come at Alabama with the same thing. That's the definition of insanity is going in at the same, expecting different results. You can't do that. So that's what I want to see from Georgia. One of the things to talk about Kirby is he's not aggressive. He doesn't like to mix things up. I felt like we saw some aggressive calling there. Yeah. I thought there for a second, I really liked this Georgia, what they were calling, but it just feels like Alabama figured it out, and they didn't branch off and try different things. So yeah, I'm ready for a matchup. I think these still are the two best teams in the country. There's no reason they shouldn't be in the playoffs.
All right, Shane, so I think that's going to cut it here for this emergency edition of the show. And, we'll still have a full recap here. We're going to have a breakdown of all the bowl games and all that. That's going to be decided here on Sunday, the college football playoff and all 13 SEC bowl games will be set here in just about 12 hours' time. So we'll recap all that on the Monday show. But you got anything else before we hop off the line here?
No, man, I think you nailed it. I'd like to have my $100 back, but you're welcome, Alabama. I locked it down for you. All the Georgia fans reaching out saying, "Damn, Shane, I can't believe you picked this." But, maybe next time I just won't pick. All right. I don't want to outside influence this thing. It's like Gary Danielson. I think he looks in the mirror before he gets on these shows and says, "I'm not going to be biased. I'm not going to be biased. I'm not going to be biased." And then as soon as he goes, "I love Alabama. Oh, my God."
Oh, Gary, I thought he was going to have an orgasm on the air with some of these Bryce Young highlights.
Oh, man. I'm surprised he didn't go down there and call timeout for Kirby there for a second. I can't wait for that Disney contract to kick in, Mike, because I'm ready to ship Gary's ass out west, man.
All right, brother. Well, that's going to do it. And I appreciate you hopping on the line, and we'll catch you on the next one.
All right. See you guys. Go Vols.